right, hello, and thank you for listening to another podcast of the Gospel Rescue Mission. I am today sitting in my office with Jim Eldred. Did I pronounce it right?
That's correct.
Eldred. And Jim has been with us for some time now. He is our, what is your official title?
Oh, kitchen coordinator. Right?
Kitchen coordinator?
We'd say.
That works. He's been the savior of the food, all things food, in the mission. We've had some really great meals, great experiences for the guys that have come in and are working in the kitchen. You also kind of, you got one eye out on our garden, which is expanding right now at an exponential rate, and all those kinds of things. And I just thought there's probably a lot of people who are listening to what we're doing, and listening to our podcast, who may not know and may not realize how important the food is to a part of what we do. Food has always been a big deal for the Gospel Rescue Mission. We do, food, clothing, shelter, gospel. These are the four things that are big, and not necessarily in that order in any of them. But food is one of the main legs of what a Gospel Rescue Mission does. And so it's been just a delight to get to know you and work with you. And I thought, you know what? I'll bet you other people would like to know something about Jim too. So maybe Jim, start us out with kind of how long you've been here with the mission, how long you've been in Grants Pass. Maybe throw out a few of the many hats that you've worn. I know maybe people go, Jim Eldred. Wait a minute, that's that boat that I'm cheering for in Boatnik or whatever. I don't know. Throw us out there.
Yeah, that's true. I drive R35, a blue-green boat. I was born in Medford, raised here in Grants Pass, moved here in 1964, and moved away after high school and joined the Navy and experienced the world by way of the Navy.
Boy, that's a great way to do it.
Yeah. And then when I got out of the Navy, I came back to Grants Pass and started a family. I talked to my granddad about going to work at a mill, and he said, no, you don't need to do that. If you did that, you'd be like us and here forever and ever. You continue doing with what you're doing and you'll see the world, and that's pretty much what has happened. I never formally trained. I worked at almost every restaurant in Southern Oregon in its day. I started out as a 12-year-old boy working in the cellar at the Riverside Inn, getting paid out of Chef Bill Dunn's pocket, just to do peeling shrimp and working a couple hours, and then I got to work on weekends a little more. But and then when I turned 14 years old, I always laugh about I got my green card, and it was literally a green card to where I could go upstairs and work in the kitchen.
Wow.
That was legal.
Yeah.
But did work my way through high school and joined the Navy, and after the Navy I came back home, started a family, worked around, and then I finally moved away. I had two little girls. I was a single parent, and the struggles of that, I appreciate all single parents out there. It is probably one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life.
Sure.
And then I met my wife, who we will be married 30 years in July in North Platte, Nebraska. And she took me down to Houston, Texas. And I always wanted to be a chef, didn't know the avenues. I had the skills, had the skill sets and stuff. And worked at Ravenel Country Club for a little more than a year, and then it really helped me. I went to the Four Seasons. Wow. And that's where I worked through the brigade system. I was hired by the Four Seasons' first female chef, Susan Weaver, and then after her was Bernardi Berra, and then it changed to the Omni Hotel, which really gave me an appreciation of what a great team I worked for there. But moving on, had a couple more children and again, started my traffic movements around the country. About every 2 years, I would load up the family and would move on to another expedition of being a sous chef and executive sous chef and a chef. And that was pretty much my young career. Did it for, like 35 years or so. Whew. And and then when I moved back here, I came here because we had a new hospital. My wife was a nurse and is a nurse at Three Rivers Hospital. And then I started a fishing rod company. It kind of changed my passions. My kids' passions ended up becoming my passions.
Okay.
And then raised my children, had a state champion wrestler, have a young man that's finishing up this year of college at Southern Oregon University, and then
you kind of helped coach wrestling for a while.
I helped with the team. I did great. My fundraising, and I had met Jack Straw, who works here at the mission, and Jack and I had followed our children off to camps and ball games and all that kind of stuff, and then kind of after our children graduated high school, we kind of went our separate ways. Well, last year, Jack gave me a call and said, "Hey, Jim, I got something for you." I go, "What do you got?"
That is so funny. This is a part of the story that I had no idea is the connection with Jack and you guys.
Right.
Jack is such a contagious guy. Jack is the single. None of us on staff ever knew Walt Fixo. Jack knew Walt Fixo.
Right.
Jack knew the guy that started this whole thing and knew everybody involved. I mean, Jack's kind of like the in and out, behind the scenes little mover and shaker behind this place in so many ways. That's great.
And he had never introduced that to me. He had never brought it to my attention. We saw each other at ball games, whether basketball, football. And then he said, I go, "Well, like, what do you got for me?" He says, "I think I got you a job." And I said, "A job?" At this time, a year ago, I was, pretty much semi-retired to retired, doing a bunch of fundraising for the football team or the wrestling team, doing fundraising for members of the Grange in Rogue River, where my aunt manages. And our sons, even Jack's son, they were in Scouts together, and they accomplished their Eagle Scouts. And after all those years, for about 15 years, my wife and I separated ourselves from all our fundraising. It was an exhausting part of our life, but It was so good for our soul. And I really have been. My wife is a lot more than I, as far as Christianity goes, because I've worked nearly every Sunday pretty much my whole life.
Sure.
And with Sunday brunches and all the holidays I worked, and just working, with a day or two off a month was pretty much my livelihood. And I never really was able to explore further into that part of my life. So I did a lot of fundraising and stuff to fill my soul. Well, this came up, and I spent about 2 months interviewing for the job. I interviewed Ken interviewed me, and in a lot of ways he was trying to talk me out of coming here, which I really respect now. At the time it was frustrating, but when I got the job, I really understand the value of all the employees here, all the staff. It's really a tight group, and we're very open to one another. We don't necessarily hang out when we're not working, but we communicate real well, and I really enjoy that. Yeah. And it's changed my whole life. I started a year ago in the end of July, and this has been a life-changing experience for me. Yeah. I've been able to get closer to Christ. Everything I believed in, but didn't understand.
Sure.
and my understanding is progressing.
Good. Well, you know what? It's been fun watching you grow over the last year here with us, and you and I have had a lot of just great conversations. I mean, where we dig in deep. We come in, we come maybe from maybe somewhat different political perspectives and angles at different things and different religious perspectives and angles. But that's true for almost all of us here on staff in some way. And what's great is that we come here and we've got this one focus that we all hit from different angles. It is how to get somebody to move from the broken place that sends them to a mission to a place where they become independent and they're their own person again. They've reconnected with themselves and with society and certainly with Christ along the way and all these things. We work and focus in that in every different angle, and it's been so great to watch what you bring to the table. And I really think your experience in the kitchen has been so critical. It's certainly not just that. Just your life experience in general has been profound for these guys. But your experience in the kitchen, because you're so good at understanding the team dynamic and helping people work together, as opposed to, everybody wants to be the boss, everybody wants to be the head chef, everybody wants to be a something. How do you do that work? I mean, when you got somebody who comes in and they come in, they go, oh, I know, I've worked in kitchens before, I know exactly what to do and everything, and I'll be your head chef, or whatever. You say you have some of the best conversations with these guys. Talk about some of that.
Well, for the most part, I just try, instead of being the chef, I look at it in a different attitude. Probably a couple of things that I treat differently than when I was the chef, and I've worked with some great ones. And, like I said, Susan Weaver, Bernardi Barrett, Tim Keating, Guy Hewlin, Hans John was a great chef at the Woodlands. The guy was a mass production chef. I mean, he was just incredible. But they all were incredible, and even the sous chefs of Ron Petruska, who was in Dubai working at the Ritz-Carlton, is now in New York. And he's younger than me, and he was a mentor of mine, and that was an incredible experience working with him. To Rodney Reitenberg, who passed away with the hotel that he was the chef at in Haiti during their the hotel came down on him during the earthquake down there in Haiti. And so there's a lot of experience, and Michael Hornsteiner, I still talk to Michael all the time, and he was one of the chefs in Atlanta during the Olympics. And he was an executive sous chef under Bernard Ibarra, who's down at Terranea in L.A. And Tim Keating's in Florida. He worked at Flying Fish, if you've ever been there in Disney World. And these are really, really great people, but they were hard on me, and that's the nature of the business.
Yeah.
There is no corners cut or anything like that. So to get with these guys, I really don't give them my resume. I really don't tell them who I am and what I'm. For the most part, I just try to earn their trust.
Yeah.
And I think that's the foundation of how I approach it, is trying to build a team. They have to trust each other. They come from a world, for the most part, in a world of crisis.
Yeah.
And in a crisis world, trust is very, very difficult for them to truly understand. They built this huge barrier around them. And that's probably the first thing that I really start working on them, is not so much trusting me, but trusting their fellow man in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And once they start working and that happens, it's a pretty incredible feeling and an experience to watch.
Yeah.
Because I don't treat them as an employee.
Right.
I treat them as that working in the kitchen is their responsibility for this house.
Yeah.
And for the women's house. They cook and prepare the food, and that's their responsibility. Others clean the restrooms and the showers and the floors and maintain the garden, that work at a couple of our outlets at Booth Street and at Second Chance.
Yeah.
Correct. And amongst several other things that we're involved in.
Sure,
You know, we donations. God bless this community. You know, I grew up in this community, and I never knew what a giving community this is until I came here.
Yeah.
I experienced some of it, you know, fundraising for the wrestling team and working with a lot of the community, but not at the level of what I see here at the Gospel Rescue Mission.
Agreed. I totally agree to that. I can't say enough about the kindness and the generosity that just pours out towards. And it's funny because there's this battle in the public, in the realm of public opinion, and it really comes from, there's this group that basically wants to castigate Grants Pass as being this. They're criminalizing homelessness. They're doing, they don't care. They're not caring about the people in need. And I'm going, open your eyes, look around you. This is the most ridiculously generous group of people I have ever seen. Working with multiple. I work with probably 17 different nonprofits here in Grants Pass, Christian nonprofits, all of them supported, none of them taking tax dollars, all of them supported from the community. And we have things like pregnancy care centers, we have Christian schools, we have things that deal with Hearts with a Mission, dealing with broken youth and everything, Joe's Place. We've got all these different community bridges. We've got all these different things that we're trying to reach out. The Rock Food Pantry, certainly Grants Pass Gospel Rescue Mission, and every one of those organizations, as far as I'm concerned, is a world-class organization. How are they doing that here in this little tiny Grants Pass? 30,000, 36,000 people, however many we have, and everything, and yet we do it. And every day we do it, and the truth is even we get support even from outside of Grants Pass. There's people that are across the United States that donate to us because they either have heard about what we do, or they see the model, whatever, they believe in what we do, and they donate to us. But Grants Pass itself is just generous and kind and caring, and I've never met somebody in Grants Pass that wasn't that way. You've got to plug yourself into Grants Pass to be a part. You got to be part of Grants Pass to want to be a recipient of what Grants Pass does. But if you are, my goodness, man, you're in a place where the generosity just doesn't seem to know you can't judge the depth of the generosity that comes through this community. It's amazing.
Probably one of the outside of the residents and how they touch my heart and have changed my life is the fact that we open up the dining room and the kitchen for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we get a bunch of volunteers. And this was my first year to experience it, and even now I get emotional thinking about the volunteers that come here and spend their holiday away from their family for these couple of hours to sit and dine and serve and help in the kitchen, in the dining room. And
sometimes they bring their whole family with them.
I know.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
Great.
And it's touching. It touches you, and if it doesn't touch you, you must not be paying attention because you work so hard for this moment, and then you go to serve, and they're just eager to help.
Yeah.
And I just tried to say, relax and enjoy this.
Yeah.
You know, this is not a soup kitchen where I'm going to sit there and make you work. No, these residents are really good people.
Yeah.
Now, there's always a few people that aren't, but for the most part, they're good people that just ended up in crisis in one way or another.
Yep.
I mean, it could have been a divorce. It could have been I lost my home. You know, I lost my children. I don't know where to go, what to do. It's not all drugs and alcohol. Even when drugs and alcohol
are involved, a lot of times drugs and alcohol are just the symptom of the result of those things. You know, I went through a divorce and I didn't know how to deal with it, so I started drinking. You know, and then drinking led to drugs or whatever. But it was the shock and awe that I didn't know how to deal with when the one thing that I valued more than anything, my marriage, just came crashing down, and it was like, and I felt like a failure or whatever. And so even when it is drugs and alcohol, you just see that it's not just drugs and alcohol.
Right.
It's you know, we get plenty of our drug addicts, we get plenty of alcoholics and everything, but it certainly doesn't make up all of who we serve here at all.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. And there's some great success stories, even in the last year that I've been here.
Yeah.
You know, we've got Franz. I'll use him as a great example.
Ooh.
I saw him this morning next door at the Rock, and he's just smiling and having a good time, working, giving back to what got him to where he's at today.
You know, Franz is one of those guys that he has no idea that we're going to be talking about him here, but I work with him over at the Rock, and of all the volunteers that I have that just come in and do and work for free, that come in and put in, I don't have anybody that outworks that guy. I don't have anybody that works harder or longer. He comes in, he is willing to come in. He would work 5 days a week for me if I had 5 days a week worth of work for him. That guy, he and I have gone out and done home deliveries. Where we start at 8:30 in the morning, and we don't get done till 2:30 in the afternoon. Where he and I were the only guys out there doing it, you know, some days and everything. And at the end of the day, he's thrilled. You can see it. He receives such a satisfaction from doing it, and it's the doing it and the satisfaction that comes. That's it. He's never once asked me for a penny. He's never once asked me to hire him. He's just happy and he just tells me, you got to spend your time doing something, Brian. I might as well just be giving back. I love just giving back and reaching out to the community. And what a great guy.
But even further than that, I mean, the community, I mean, I've talked to a few of the restaurants and stuff. If somebody comes through, and I've got a couple of guys' jobs at the restaurants, at Tap Rock and the Hispanic restaurant, the Mexican restaurant over in the Allen Creek Plaza, and even right down the street here at G Street, you'll see a lot of our residents that walk out of here.
Yep.
And at one time before the coronavirus impacted the community, and still does, we had almost half of the residents here were working.
Yeah.
They had full-time employment. That's part of being in the Gospel Rescue Mission.
Yep.
And you see guys that work hard. They leave. They come and pick up their sack lunch in the morning in the kitchen, and then they come in for dinner in the evening.
Yep.
And do a full day's work. And there are several of our locals that rely on us to fulfill their positions, their employment positions.
Yeah, even with the coronavirus, we still, in our men's facility here, we've probably got still at least 20% of our men still working for us.
Right. Well,
I mean, that's amazing.
Because a lot of them during this time have graduated on and been able to find their own place, and they still have their jobs.
Yep.
And, you know, it's an incredible thing to experience. It's probably I say I've worked in some great kitchens.
Yeah.
But this is probably the most fulfilling job I've ever had.
Wow. Well, I got to tell you, Jim, we've had a lot of kitchen guys. We've had a lot of really talented kitchen guys to try and run that facility, to try and run our kitchen. And it takes a lot to run our kitchen. I've tried to do it. I've done it personally, off and on for a number of years. Ken, even our executive director, has come in and tried to do it, for a while. And as we've tried to get our head around what does it take to make this thing work and flow and everything. And I really can honestly say that during your time here, I have got the least amount of complaints about food. I've gotten zero complaints about interactions with you or anything like that. I mean, I definitely have. This used to be how are we going to figure this system out? And whatever it is that you're bringing, your methods, your personality, God has got you here in this time, man, and I'm convinced of that.
I think you're right. My fairy dust, if you will, is probably empowering the good gentleman to make a mistake. Yeah. And I don't come down on them. Now, there's times when, they're just way out of touch or out of reach that you have to come down on them. But for the most part, I went through a class of empowerment through the El Conquistador Hotel in Tucson, Arizona, and the executive chef, I was the executive sous chef, and myself went through this empowerment program, and it was life-changing in itself, because we're so thumb on their head, the old school in the kitchen, thumb on your heads, the Gordon Ramsay mentality, and it was true. I mean, that's how kitchens are ran.
Yep.
And for us to go through that program, we would look at each other and laugh. And as the class went on through the weeks, we started to understand it a little better, and was able to bring it to our into our managing criteria. And I'm telling you, and it's worked out because I just manage these guys. I don't employ them, and I am not their boss as much as they think I am.
Right.
I just stand back and let them make mistakes and try to correct it and make sure that the mistakes they made and really watch out for safety for them, to where nobody gets injured or sick or and
right.
They all are card carrying Oregon Health cards,
so they food service cards. Yep.
Food service cards. So they understand the program. So when they make a mistake and I bring it to their attention, they understand it. They've been trained through the state of Oregon on this.
Yeah.
Unbeknownst to them.
Right.
But it really works.
Yeah.
And you can pat the back of the Oregon State Food Service Program also.
Yeah. Well, and that's the kind of thing that, when people go, well, what's your success? Why are you so successful in the kitchen? Why are you so successful at getting people jobs and stuff? Well, because we're giving them something in the activities here that transfers to real life work. And so if you looked at like employment opportunities here in Grants Pass and everything, you're going to find them in the service areas. You're going to find them in retail areas. You're going to find them in maybe in manufacturing areas and stuff like that. Those are kind of the three biggies here in Grants Pass. I know everybody wants them to learn, and wants our guys to learn construction and welding and all these other things, which are all good trades, but that's not what's booming here in Grants Pass and where the majority of hiring is being done here in Grants Pass. The majority of it is being done in those other three areas, which also happens to fit. I don't have to do anything new to make that happen, to train them. When they come in to the Gospel Rescue Mission, when a resident comes in, a men's house or women's house, they immediately are getting, they're immediately added to our housekeeping program, which by golly translates really well into housekeeping at a hotel or motel or school district or something. They're learning They're learning indoor cleaning, skills and proper cleaning care. When they come in, and a lot of our ladies and some of our guys go right into, get hired at one of the local hotels or something. When we get
or even the resorts up in the mountains.
You bet. Yeah. Exactly. Who would we have? Franz gentleman that
Franz buddy went up to Hyatt Lake.
That's right.
He worked in the kitchen and then went up there to work in the housekeeping.
Yeah, I was
division.
Just talking to Jade Crane not too long ago. She's one of the head housekeepers up at one of the hotels up at the top of town here and stuff. I think La Quinta or something up there. And she was like, yeah, I do the same thing. I put into practice the same things that I was doing at the mission, and stuff. And then, I can't go to a restaurant just about anywhere here in town without, hearing from behind the kitchen, if they see me somewhere behind there, whether it's from the dish pit or something, you hear somebody yell, "Hey, Brian," and wave to me.
But those are real life experience. Going through this coronavirus, we have none that have came through here.
None.
Nobody's been tested. We follow the CDC's
yep.
and our chemical program as far as keeping the place clean,
yep.
keeping ourselves clean. We encourage them to shower once or twice a day.
Yep.
You walk in the mission, you immediately get your shoes sprayed, you immediately get soap on your hands. And that's for everybody. Even myself.
Yep.
I make a point of not just going through the back door of the kitchen as I could. I try to make a point of going in and let everybody see that I go through the same program.
Yep.
It's not a hindrance.
That's right.
It's just
and especially when we're seeing, you see across the country. I saw an article from Boston about how 88% of the residents in the homeless shelters there came down with coronavirus. Have coronavirus. Same with San Diego had something like 60% of one of the homeless camps there or something like that. We've got zero. I don't even have anybody with a common cold right now.
Right.
I mean, since this thing came out, I don't have anybody that's got a flu. I don't got any. We're in such a good spot right now, and it's because we just practice good hygiene here. Because we're different than the average homeless shelter in that sense, and even different than the average gospel rescue mission, frankly, in a lot of ways. And that has really helped set us apart. Both. I think that's in part why the community is so giving towards us, is because we've taken that gift and we've really honored it. We've really tried to be, respectful to, we're serious about what we do. We want to not just be wasteful with that gift. We want to take it very seriously and treat it very professionally in every way. And we may not bat it out of the park 1,000 times. We don't always answer the phone as well as we ought to, or emails as well as we ought to. But we sure do our best, and we're always, when we don't, we're aware of it and we're trying to correct it, and that's important.
And and another thing, just to let everybody here in Grants Pass know that when you make a donation here, you'd be surprised how much goes back into the community on those donations. Yeah. I mean, if we have, and just like with the rock next door, we're not just for the homeless. We really reach out to people in need, and we'll resolve anybody's crisis in the best way that we can.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can't do it right here, but we'll be sure that we can feed them, clothe them, and make sure that they can get through a short period of time and just a leg up.
Yeah.
And boy, that's honoring to be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. We've definitely, our thrift stores, all the proceeds go back to feed this place, to keep the lights on, to keep everything moving, to keep this machine working. But So it's not like Glenn, who manages them, who's a former resident, by the way. It's not like Glenn's living on some hilltop house here in town, making bank. Glenn walks everywhere, doesn't have a car. Glenn lives in an apartment complex here in town, where there's former residents that live right next door to him because it's cheap rent and stuff. None of us are taking home. I mean, look at our 990s, man, and nobody here is overpaid. Trust me, and everything. What we do is we pour everything right back into this stuff. But then, in addition to that, what never gets reported is the countless pounds of clothing that we give out, that we just give away to people who, when somebody calls up and says, hey, I know somebody whose house burnt down, can you help them and stuff? You bet we can help them. You send them in and we'll make sure that they have everything they need to get them by. It may not be, if we've got it and they need it, they can have it. And we don't charge them for it. And we don't charge anybody for it. We just make it happen. I've seen individual staff members who know somebody in town, one of their friends that needs help moving, and so we borrow the mission truck and we'll go help you move. They're doing it on their weekend, on their own spare time, still helping people, because that's what we do. This is just, once you get into that mode, it's hard to turn it off. We just always like helping people, and it becomes so satisfying, and
it's infectious. It really is.
Yeah. So it's a neat thing. I know The Rock here, I think David James, who has been the longest, he's the second longest garden writer in the nation. He's been writing a garden column consecutively longer than anybody but one other person in the entire country. And he just stepped down from that role, but he's been helping us with our garden for the longest time. He just, he saw our expansion of our garden that we're doing in the backside of the mission, and he's like, great, I was wondering why the Lord told me to plant all these extra plants and everything. But he planted, and he's going to be giving out at the Rock. He gave us to donate. He's given us to donate cherry tomato plants.
Oh, that's right.
And so I'm going to end up with these gallon size, anywhere from 4-inch to gallon size cherry tomato plants, sweet 100s. They're going to be fantastic. I'll tell you what, if you've never planted anything and had it work well for you, cherry tomatoes, it's hard to fail. I mean, if you can't make cherry tomatoes work, you're in the wrong. Stick to plastic plants, but that's just the way it is. And that's what happens, is we move from one good gift to the next. We keep doing it. We're doing, just good things. Everybody involved here pitches in. Everybody involved here gives to far more than what we're doing just here. Grants Pass is a blessing to the Gospel Rescue Mission, and the Gospel Rescue Mission, and everybody who's involved. We are consciously always desiring to be a blessing to Grants Pass. We want to be a blessing to the community that we're in.
Yeah, we are blessed with. I grew up here. It's a great community. I moved away for 20 years and came back, and it's wow.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, Jim, I want to just thank you for your time today, and we'll probably talk, again. We'll probably do maybe a little shorter podcast at some point in time in the future, but just talking about, other things, because you and I have so much that we can talk about, and there's so many interesting things that happen in the day-to-day life of the kitchen, and in the day-to-day life of our world, our politics, our all kinds of stuff. There's always fun stuff to talk about. Christianity, what's happening in the community. I thank you for taking the time to do this, and again, would encourage anybody, if you have at all, you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, this really rings a bell in my heart on something. I would please reach out to us. Share this podcast with people that that might also find this interesting, other employers, other people, family members, whatever. And of course, obviously, you can certainly donate to and continue to contribute to the good work that we're doing here. If you go onto our website, which is grantspassmission.org, and then just look at the donate tab. If you click on the donate tab, It's super easy to donate to us, online. It's super easy to keep this thing going. You can do a reoccurring donation. You can do a one-time gift. We would really, really appreciate that. Obviously, when Thanksgiving comes up and Christmas comes up, as we're getting close, sign up to come join us. Come down and meet Jim. And if you've got an extra something growing in your garden that you think needs to go to the mission, by all means, bring it by, and maybe you'll get a chance to meet Jim face to face. Great addition to our staff, and we would love to. I know Jim would love to thank you personally. And
share our garden with you.
Absolutely, yeah. If you know anybody in need, come by and check us out. Anyways, that's the heart of the Gospel Rescue Mission. So follow us on Facebook, share this with your friends, like us, follow us, encourage others to do the same. Thank you for listening. God bless you, and have a great day.